Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. I'm your host, Renita Ray Davis, and today we continue our Remember Me series, a special set of conversations leading up to our November 1st community screening of the Remember Me documentary at the Central Alabama Aging Consortium. I'm so excited to be joined today by Melissa Stellhorn, the nutrition coordinator at CAAC, where she oversees meal services for senior centers in Osage, Elmore, and Montgomery counties and coordinates frozen meal delivery for homebound older adults. Originally from Illinois, Melissa earned her master's degree in therapeutic recreation and a gerontology certificate from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Her career has been deeply rooted in supporting individuals across the lifespan, including those with acquired brain injuries, severe mental illness, and intellectual disabilities. Melissa's passion for helping others began early at age 12, where she volunteered at the YMCA assisting swim instructors and later became a lifeguard, swimming instructor, and summer camp counselor. Over the years, she has held roles as a recreation aide, vocational coordinator, psychosocial program leader, and supportive services coordinator before stepping into her current role as the nutrition coordinator at CAAC in April 2025. Outside of work, Melissa enjoys spending time with her husband, their children, and their 2 and 4-legged family members. She also loves gardening and is creating a native pollinator friendly yard at home. Melissa, welcome to the podcast. We are so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad.
Yay. Melissa, I loved your bio, but my favorite part was the last sentence where you are creating a native pollinator friendly yard at home. I have a little thing going in my backyard right now. We just saw the biggest butterfly we've ever seen. Tell me, why was that so important to you to create a pollinator friendly yard?
Well, I've been learning a lot about different pollinators and the fact that recently they have been starting to be listed on the endangered list. And I come from a farm family, so I grew up eating whatever we grew. And I guess in my little space, I just want to provide better in order to keep our world going.
And you're doing that in so many ways. You're doing that in so many ways. You're doing that in so many ways. I was just thinking when you're feeding the pollinators, and also your job is to make sure that our elders eat as well, and just to be pouring into people and to come from a farm family. It just is like, oh, you couldn't get away from it at all. You weren't going to get away from it at all. Have you tried yet growing your own veggies or food yet? Is that something that you're
So
interested in
this year
doing?
we did strawberries, tomatoes, and my husband and his son did jalapeno peppers.
And how do they turn out? Are you getting a harvest?
So the tomatoes were amazing.
Mm.
I love the aromas. I like to use them as just regular tomatoes. I don't even need to make a sauce. And the boys loved the peppers. I have an allergy to peppers, so I told them that I would help them grow, but that they had to manage them themselves. And my son also tried watermelons, and they were going really well. And then something happened, and they just sort of,
Yeah.
But we need to give the soil in our yard a lot of love. So we've started a composting bin, in order to hopefully help kind of, because we have very sandy soil in one area and then very clay soil in another. And being from Illinois, although I'm used to clay, I'd like to get it a little richer, because a lot of my plants, they seem to go for 1 or 2 years and then they just sort of, and they give up. And so I have to learn to do better.
I love that. And there's a whole metaphor there about tending to the soil and making sure it has the right nutrients and all that. And how are we tending to our own body soil? But I'm not gonna go there. We hadn't even I have a lot of questions I gotta ask you, but there was a beautiful metaphor. So great luck to you on your pollinator garden. I hope you get lots of pollinators this year as well. But Melissa, when you were growing up, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you imagine that this would be the career that you would be in?
No, when I was a kid, I was certain that I'd be working with animals. Those were my first friends. And then as a teenager, I thought that my calling was to be an art teacher. I really loved art. I especially love art history and just learning to appreciate art in all of its many forms. And my mother and my sister are teachers, so teaching comes naturally. And now soon after college, that my father likes to say that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Because you can plan all you want to, but you're going to go where you're supposed to go.
Absolutely. Just like what we were just talking about. You came from a farm family, you're feeding the pollinators, and now your job is also to feed the elderly. And so you were but yet, and I shortened your bio. We were talking about that right before we hit record. I shortened your bio a little bit, but you've had a very unique journey to get here. And so even your father saying you're going to end up where you're supposed to be, but you had a very, very unique journey getting here. And so you work with so many populations, people with acquired brain injuries, severe mental illnesses, differently disabled folks. What led you specifically into the aging services? Like, tell me your journey. How did you get here?
So I think the reason why I was so interested in working with the elder population is that when I went to grad school, I was doing some personal care for families around the area, and 3 of them would be considered, senior citizens. And I ended up becoming a live-in caregiver and listening to the stories and kind of understanding where they came from. I also am a great lover of history. So being able to ask someone what it was like growing up in the Depression on a farm in Wisconsin versus a Chicago suburb, like those differences were just so intriguing to me. And just listening what it was like to wake up and fly an airplane in World War II. I mean, that was, I was getting like secondhand knowledge. And you could never get that in a book. And so, yeah, and I was the youngest, and my father was actually the second youngest of 9. So I had a lot of elders around me throughout my upbringing. And, I would watch all of my aunties getting together and working on a quilt. And I would, read about how my grandmother made pillows and blankets for her children out of goose feathers, her geese. And like those, I don't know why it just really it was important to me to know what others have done and what they've experienced and what they've been through. And you can't get stories like that unless people are older.
And Melissa, you can't get stories like that. Not just people are older. Yes, I agree. And I'm going to lean into that in just a second. But you also have to have a willingness to sit and listen and be
Mm.
still long enough to sit and listen. And as you were talking, I was thinking about we're so busy doing this. We got this and that and the other to going on, especially as a young person. When you were probably initially starting to get these stories, why would you sit? Why would you have the willingness to sit and listen?
I don't know.
It was just interesting.
It was
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. And now are you doing that with the nutrition program? Do you have the opportunity to sit and listen, or is it just getting them? You're going to tell me all about the nutrition program, but I'm wondering, do you get to sit and listen to the stories as well?
Sometimes
Mhm.
when just last week I was doing an assessment at one of the senior centers and I got to sit down and really talk to a couple of the people that were there and found out that one of the gentlemen went to the same university I did, graduated. I think he said he was there around 1962. And I told him that, you know, I was there in 1996. And we kind of got to talk about the differences in the town, you know, like he said, well, what was this like? And, you know, he said, oh, did they ever get their walkways across the highway that they wanted? And I said, as a matter of fact, they got 3, you know? So it was kind of fun to update him on what it was like when I was there.
I love that. And the fact that, we're going to be talking about dementia and Alzheimer's in a minute, and you're having this conversation, and he's able to remember that long ago and bring that up, and you're able to have that conversation with him. That was very good for his memory. Very, very good for his memory. I love that. And so, Melissa, tell me your story. Like, why are you so interested in working with people with acquired brain injuries and severe mental illnesses? How did you land in those particular roles?
Well, what got me in the door was probably just the fact that I had a degree in education. Um, I think what helped me to stay was that I have a personality that um, not only accepts people for where they are, but I want to be a helper. I've always loved to help. And one of the things that I've kind of noticed across my journey is that I've worked in many places that they teach of a blank slate policy when it comes to people who have any type of intellectual challenge, and how you need to understand that, you know, yeah, they're going to have behaviors and they're going to act out, and no, it's not all their diagnosis or their injury, but how they're dealing with those feelings that they're having is about their injury. And it's not them as a person. And that was very easy for me to, you know, maybe I got hurt, but I could come back and be like, I know they didn't mean to hurt me. It's just what happened in the situation. And it's very easy for me to just let things like that, you know, and I think a lot of that had to do with, you know, growing up and being teased and bullied, and, you know, I was taking a lot of that to heart. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that just because that's being pushed towards me doesn't mean I have to accept it. And that it says a lot more about them than it says about me.
Absolutely. I love that. And then now wanting to make sure that other people feel safe. We were literally just talking about that, making sure other people feel safe
Yeah.
and know that this is a safe space. Like the guys of social work is a
Yeah.
safe space for you to just come as you are, and you embody that in the work that you do. And so thank you for that work, because it is needed. It's not just because you have the degree, but because you care. And we need people doing the work because they care. So I'm curious, Melissa, how did you get to the CAAC? Were you looking for this position, or was
Uh,
this uh-huh.
so I spent most of my adult life in Southern Illinois, which I will fully admit I am biased. I think it's the most beautiful area. It is where the Shawnee National Forest is found. It is my heart space. When I need to feel home, I go back to the forest. But I met this man. They always ruin everything, don't they? Anyway, and he asked me to marry him, and he had 3 kids from a previous marriage, and they lived in Alabama. And when we chose to move down here, I kept seeing this little name, kept kind of reaching out from the map, and it said, well, in my head, it said Wetumpka, but it's Wetumpka. And I kept saying, why? I don't know why, but I want to check out this little space. And that's where I live now. But I made it to CAAC because I applied for a position that I had no right applying for. I heard on a news broadcast that men have a tendency to apply for positions that are far above their education and their experience, and that women, we stay in our boxes. And I always wanted to work with the elderly, and I learned that this was the Agency on Aging, and the only position that I knew they had open was the executive director. And I threw in my resume, and I got a call, and I did the whole entire interview. And at the very end, when they said, do you have any more questions for us? I said, I think we all know that I am not right for this position, and that you should not hire me for this position. I said, but I do think that I would be very beneficial for this company. And I got a call 2 weeks back and asked to be the supported services director. And that led me into learning about this woman, Daisy Bolden, who was the original nutrition director. And she became my superstar because I love the senior centers and I wanted to do what she was doing. So when she retired, fortunately, they offered me the position. So I should be here. I should. I just came on false pretenses.
Not even you just came on your own way, in your own way. That I did not know that story. That is such an amazing story.
It tickles me now, but I was terrified.
I love, and I hope the women heard what you said, because I've heard it a couple different times. Apply for the job, even if you feel like you're not qualified. Apply for the job, because a whole nother door, window, or hallway might open up for you. I love that part, one, because that happened for you. But then two, at the end of the interview, you saying, we all know this ain't it. But I know me, and I know that I can what I can bring to the table, and you should consider me anyway for whatever you have. And they found something for you, and now you're doing your dream job. I just want to reiterate: apply for the job. Apply
Yeah.
for the job. Melissa, that is such a great story.
Yeah. I'm very blessed. I
And who
love
was the
working here.
person who was your superstar?
Oh, so the person that I met, her name is Daisy Bolden, and she just retired this past March. And I saw her going around and she was never in one place for long. She was just in and out and up and down and had all these things going on. And she had been doing the job for 25 years.
Wow.
Well, I guess when I met her, it was like 22, 23. And I thought to myself, I wonder, well, I was teaching these Jerry Fit classes and I started going to these senior centers. And my mind was just blown away. I absolutely fell in love with the senior centers. And when I realized that she was the person who was kind of in the most direct contact with them, I just told her, I want to be you when I grow up.
And now you are.
Well, I'm the nutrition coordinator.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
Melissa, and you're Melissa. I love. So tell me, I want to hear inside the elderly nutrition program. So for I don't know, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast. But for all of our listeners out there who do not know anything about the nutrition program, can you tell us about a little bit about it?
So the nutrition program is actually through the Older Americans Act. And we can provide meals to congregates, which basically means meals inside the senior center. We can provide meals to people who are homebound. They can't get out of their homes in order to attend a center. And then there's also a frozen meal plan, but we also provide 210 meals to the Montgomery Meals on Wheels program. And all of this is funded by Older Americans Title III. And so it's so beneficial because some people, it's their only meal that they get. If they don't have someone who can actually be a caregiver for them and they don't have the balance or the ability to prepare a meal, they may only have the ability to put a meal into the microwave and warm it up. And if it is like that and they only have someone maybe coming once a week to check up on them, we don't know. We're hoping that they're getting more than that meal, but at least we know they're getting that meal. And so it's really important the state makes sure that there are dietitians checking and making sure that the nutrients in each meal is well-rounded and beneficial. And we currently provide meals to 18, like I said, 18 senior centers and one pickup, which is the Meals on Wheels pickup program. So yeah, that's a lot of meals.
That is a lot of meals. And
A lot of meals
I
a
didn't
week
even know there were 18, and this is in Montgomery, Otaga, and Elmore
in
counties.
Elmore counties.
And does that cover all the seniors? Are there 18 senior senior centers in
So
those
there are actually
18
more
counties?
than
Or there's
that.
way more than that. Okay, yeah.
There are more than that in the three counties. It's just that we've partnered with those. And there are, certain parameters. You can't have two senior centers within 3 miles of each other. Little things.
Little
But
rules the federal government makes us go by. Yeah.
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 There's always, some red tape and some
Yeah.
guidelines. And, we just stay within those and make sure people get fed.
Melissa, I'm curious, as a social worker, I'm very familiar with Meals on Wheels. What is the difference between the nutrition program? Because you partner with Meals on Wheels, so there must be a difference between the programs. Why is the nutrition program different? What makes it different?
So I don't actually have that information.
Okay.
I haven't gotten that far in my learning. I've only been doing this for 4 months.
So early congratulations. Yeah.
So although I have jumped in with both feet, I don't have all of the smaller information.
Yeah. I was just curious, like I know Meals on Wheels but it just so what I also am hearing is in addition to Meals on Wheels for Alabama, we also have the nutrition program, and it probably fills in gaps that the Meals on Wheels isn't able
Yeah.
to do. Yeah.
Well, and Meals on Wheels, even though we provide 210 meals to them, they provide more than that per day.
That's what I was thinking.
I
Okay.
think they also have other funding sources in order
Mhm.
so that they can provide more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been your most favorite story so far in doing this work?
Most favorite. So I think my favorite, this was back when I was the supported services. I was giving a Jerry Fit class. It was probably the first of 24 consecutive classes that we give. And I went into a senior center, and probably one of the smaller centers, size wise, not people wise. And I did my thing and started packing up to go. And one of the ladies, she started giving me a hard time, and I liked it. I knew that was her way of connecting. Some people are,
Yes.
some people have to see how much they can push you, and so I started kind of playing around with her a little, back and forth. And all of a sudden she just said, well, are you going to stay and have lunch with us? And it was like the first time I had been offered to stay and have lunch. And there's something about sharing a meal with others. And like, I don't know, like that just really, even though I've had meals at other senior centers, and every senior center has its own personality, and I just absolutely love the senior center environment. There's just something about being asked to share a meal the first time that just really, I hold that in my heart.
That's so beautiful. And I love that. I'm glad you stayed and shared that meal with her too. You've mentioned these centers, and I keep getting tongue tied on it, but um, CAAC partners with throughout the different programs, or I'm curious, can you tell us more about the senior
So each
centers?
center has a contractor, and the
Uh-huh.
contractor basically has certain things that they need to fulfill in order to keep the senior center running and safe and all that kind of stuff. And then we, as the aging agency and the nutrition program, we provide the meals, make sure that they have the supplies and equipment through the food provider, as well as ask them to turn in paperwork so that we can show that nutrition education is being done and they're not just coming to a center to watch TV, that they're getting other benefits as well, whether that be, fire and safety, or that means that they've, I don't know, tried a new arts and craft project, because really, it's not just about the community. I mean, that's wonderful for their socializing and their memory and their mental health, but it's also about giving them a quality of life. And if they're wanting to keep returning to the center for whatever their reason, then that means that there is a quality of life that is being created in that environment. And that's kind of where my recreation therapy degree kind of comes from, because I want to increase people's quality of life so that they don't start becoming depressed or hopeless, because seniors, they can choose to do things that aren't healthy also. And so, and I think that I have to say this, one of the things I love about seniors is that they're going to tell you like it is. They are not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to tell it like it is. And I really appreciate that, because sometimes I am the person in the room that doesn't get it. So when people are just being straightforward and honest with me, I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I understand why you are like, and I've had so many people that'll tell me like, I don't eat for my health. And I'm like, okay, well, then you just need to eat. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
to just tell them like, well, then just eat.
You give them what they're giving you. You give them back.
Correct.
You give. I'm so glad you brought that up because that was actually my next question for you. You know, since you do spend so much time in the senior centers, I don't know why I can't say it the first time correctly, but since you do spend so much time in these spaces, you know, I was wondering what you had witnessed in terms of emotional or social impact. Um, and the fact that you're bringing these meals and you like you said there's something about sharing a meal together, so what have you witnessed as far as the emotional or social impact?
The most beautiful thing about the senior centers is that no matter which one you go into, no matter what kind of personality the center organism has, because they all are their own separate entity and no two are alike, every single one of them has become a family. So you can talk about, I mean, two people that may have grown up in the same little area who knew each other maybe in school and then didn't see each other again until they were older are reconnecting. And a transplant like me can walk in there and meet somebody who's lived there their whole life, and all of a sudden you're family. And I've witnessed them calling each other and saying, like, you're not at the center yet. I just want to make sure you're okay. And they're like, oh, yeah, I had a doctor's appointment. So, I'll pop in later or something, and it just makes me feel so good that they're watching out for each other. Because as we age, a lot of times our support groups shrink. And so to sit there and walk into a senior center and gain a whole new support group is so positive. Yeah, they may be at home alone, or maybe they're taking care of their grandkid or something like that. But to have people in their age range that they can connect with and actually feel like they are cared for, cared about, that is just, that's an amazing
It sounds
thing.
absolutely beautiful, and
Yeah.
I'm imagining you going to 18 different families. You have
I love all my little like
yeah.
I love my little families. I don't get to visit them as often as I would like, but when I do get a chance to go out there, and I try to stay and you know learn about someone. Or my biggest thing is I hate when I forget a person's name. I I'm I like having a person's name and I like to pronounce it correctly, and I don't like saying hey you. And I'm not out there enough to really start being able to name everybody yet, but I know I'll get there. I just need to hang in until it starts becoming second nature.
And it will, in and out, especially because you want it to. That's one of your desires and intentions. So it absolutely will. Melissa, you've done such a good job because I was going to ask you about how did the senior centers help promote connection, dignity, and belonging. You've already told us about that. So I'm going to move into the Remember Me screening, which is another reason why we're having a podcast episode today and why CAAC has so graciously allowed me to interview all of you guys. On November 1st, we are having our next face to face event, and we'll be doing the Remember Me film screening. And part of that event is we're having a resource fair where all of the programs and a couple more outside of CAC will be on display with all the information. But also, just this film is about dementia, not necessarily Alzheimer, but definitely dementia. What is it that you're hoping people walk away with when they come and see us on the 1st?
Well, so I hope that it just gives people like a better idea of dementia, the umbrella term that it is, so that maybe when they see signs, they're less likely to blow them off or think that mom or dad is getting a little, crotchety or, and see them for what they are. But also to know that a place like CAAC is here. And by connecting with us early and learning what we provide, then we're a good backup plan. It's a lot harder when you're in crisis mode to find those resources. Whereas if you already know of the resources, then should something happen, you've already got a pathway. And the wonderful thing about not only our programs, but we know of so many other social work programs out there that even if we are not able to provide it, we can connect you with someone who can.
I keep hearing that. Like that, Claire said that when I interviewed, she is over the Senior RX program.
Yeah.
Now you're saying that. So it feels like when you keep hearing that is what will happen, that one, we have all these programs, but if we can't help you, we know somebody who can, and we'll connect you to them. And so the fact that you guys keep saying that, I believe it. Like, so even if you don't know where to go, just go to the CAAC, and even if they can't help you, they know how to connect you to somebody who can. Melissa, I have so enjoyed interviewing you today. Loved learning about the nutrition program that you're over. Loved learning more about CAAC and what it's doing for our community. Love getting the word out about this amazing agency, and I absolutely loved your story about how you ended up there. And again, going back to what your dad said, when you're supposed to be somewhere, you'll end up there. You will end up there, even if you have all these other plans. You'll end up exactly where you're supposed to be. And so, with saying all of that, do you have any final words of advice you would like to give our audience today?
So my newest favorite thing, because sometimes you can get overwhelmed with whatever it is that's happening around you. My new favorite thing right now that helps me kind of stay centered is you cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. And it kind of helps me maintain my focus on this is what I've been asked to do with my life. And this is my little piece of good that I'm going to give to the world.
And it looks like that pollinator garden. Yeah.
That's part of it.
That's part of it.
Yep.
Beautiful and diverse.
My social work and my earth work.
And your earthwork. That is so beautiful. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for the work that you do every single day supporting older adults in our communities. We appreciate that. And for everyone listening, we'll include links in the description where you can learn more about the CAAC and about the Elderly Nutrition Program and how you can reach out to Melissa. I will also include links for you to register for the Remember Me documentary screening and community gathering that's happening on November 1st. And also, y'all, don't forget to subscribe. We're blowing up a little bit, so make sure you subscribe. Thank you, Melissa, so much for joining the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you liked this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.